Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new hashtag Top 10 Thursday here on the channel. So no doubt you're all wondering what this assembly of characters before you have in common and how that links into today's Top 10. Well, all of these characters have speed in common, which means that this top 10 can only be exactly what the title alludes to, the top 10 greatest Skylanders for speedrunning. And unfortunately, none of the Skylanders before you are going to qualify for this list because they are the 5 honourable mentions. So all of these characters have some capabilities to them that make them definitely capable speedrunners. However, with all of them, there is some sort of limitation stopping them from hitting the list. With Zap, for example, whilst you can definitely use his Sea Slime slides to speed him up quite effectively, unfortunately his attacks just aren't powerful enough to get through the combat sections as fast as other characters. And the same can be said for Scorp, who does have some really great maneuverability and a constant dash attack. However, all of his other abilities are not powerful enough to get through combat scenarios faster than what other characters can do them. Then there's Freeze Blade and Magnet Charge. Now, with Magnet Charge, it has a lot less maneuverability whenever you're utilising his wheel, and it's just not as fast as other speed-based abilities. And when it comes to Freeze Blade, because you have to mash the secondary attack button in order to actually speed yourself up, then the mashing can result in very easy mistakes. And ultimately, once again, it's just not as fast due to the cooldown after you finish skating and the top half not being to combat adapt, mind you. But as I digress, our final honourable mention here is going to be Wolfgang, who does have a really great dash ability that can string in together very, very easily. And but unfortunately, even once you finish your string of dashing abilities, you lose all of the momentum you've gained because of the fact that you have a very slow cooldown after the dash attack, or a group-based attack. Either way, whilst it is powerful, it unfortunately does ruin momentum and isn't great for the speed-based part of the speedrun, even if it does help make combat that little bit quicker. So Wolfgang was very close to making the list, but ultimately the character that won out for that number 10 slot in the end was none other than Bash, specifically for Series 2 iteration, due to how great his WoW power is for speedrunning. So Bash has a permanent role which is quite maneuverable and very good for taking sharper turns, and the fact that it's permanent means you can hold down the button and speedrun with ease. However, the role itself is much slower than other Skylanders' speed up based abilities, therefore Bash can't really get any higher than number 10, but what ultimately gives him the edge over Wolfgang in the end is that come the end of his role, you can utilise that WoW power ability to create a huge ground pound attack that's very good for huge clusters of enemies, so you can roll straight into a combat scenario, initiate that WoW power, and on the easy difficulty, which you should be playing on for a speedrun to maximise your time saves, because of course enemies die quicker on easy mode, regardless, due to how weak if they are in that gaming mode, will make it so that the WoW power will take out almost all of them instantly, and then from there you can continue your role instantly without the worry of cooldown. So effectively he's just better at getting in and out of combat scenarios over the honourable mentions, even if his speeding up ability itself wasn't as fast as theirs, mind you. Next up on the list at number 9 is going to be none other than Drobot, who has a really good speeding up ability in the form of his afterburners, which allow him to go much faster than most other Skylander speed up abilities, mind you, but the main flaw here is the fact that you don't have much maneuverability in this fly-in format, so in order to take sharp turns you need to ground your flight, take the corner, and then initiate the flight once again, which due to the cooldowns and everything can be a huge time waster, and ultimately that makes Drobot not as fast as other characters yet to come on the list, hence why he's here at number 9. But regardless, due to the sheer speed you have, especially in straight sections, and the fact that Drobot absolutely tears through enemies with his broken based abilities, makes Drobot a very capable speedrunner purely because of how quick those combat scenarios will fly by, pun intended, with Drobot's overpowered lasers, so to say. And not to mention, it's not a very button mashing heavy run, since you literally hold the attack buttons to both hover and blast your lasers, so that can definitely minimize mistakes. At number 8 we have Lobstar, who has one of the fastest dash attacks of any Skylander in the franchise. However, the dash attack is a one-time thing, and you can't hold it in order to permanently dash, mind you. And the cooldowns you have to suffer in between dashes can waste few nanoseconds, mind you, which do culminate into a few seconds per run. But Lobstar's crowd-based attacks, whenever he finishes a charge up, mind you, will make it so that, similar to Bash, Lobstar can defeat enemies all around him very, very quickly, so he can go into a dash straight into a combat scenario in order to finish off his opponents, and then go straight back into it once the opponents are defeated to continue on his way, mind you. So that huge ability of being able to get in and out of dashes very fast is truly useful. And in Trap Team, Trap Masters have additional power against boss fights, which are going to be the main time spent during a speedrun. So the fact that Lobstar is not really a Trap Master getting additional power, but the fact that he has an absolutely huge boss killing move, especially for the easy difficulties, helps out with defeating those bosses much more quickly, because if you charge up his stars, it takes minimal time and you get a huge reward from it all, with a huge chunk of damage, one shot in a lot of bosses along the way, making it so that Lobstar, sure, whilst not being the best speedrunner due to the fact that his dash attack just isn't is a one-time use type of dealio, still doesn't stop him from being one of the better speedrunners in Skylanders, hence why he's number 8 on the list right here, you could say. Number 7 is going to be Smolder Dash, who has an Eclipse-based mode which allows her to get all fired up and deal increased damage, as well as dash forward in a move that is known as the Smolder Dash. Regardless, during this Eclipse mode, Smolder Dash is very, very fast, with dash abilities that have no sort of cooldown whatsoever and can be used to button mash your way through a level with ease, since the dash travels quickly and accurately. However, the button mashingness can make it so that you miss input and create 4 mistakes. And the main downfall of Smolder Dash ultimately is the fact that the Eclipse mode isn't permanent and has a really long cooldown, so whenever you don't have the Eclipse mode active and have to wait in order for it to recharge, you're at regular walking pace, which is so much slower than regular Skylanders that either have that permanent dash or have a dash ability available directly after one that they've already utilized, mind you, with minimal cooldown, is what I'm saying here, creates the most effective speedrunners. And unfortunately, Smolder Dash is not one of those characters. However, due to the speed and power capabilities of this character and how fast she gets through combat scenarios with Eclipse mode or without it, makes her an easy number 7 slot for the list right here. For number 6, we're going to have none other than Roller Brawl, who's a very good speedrunner based on the fact that she also has a permanent dash attack which is incredibly fast and very maneuverable. Her main weakness, however, comes to the platforming sections, because whilst you're jumping you can't use any sort of dash based abilities. In fact, you have to finish your dash in order to jump. So that can lose a lot of momentum in terms of Roller Brawl's speed, but her huge amount of power within that headbutt as you initiate your charge can either knock enemies off the ledge and create an instant kill, or defeat them incredibly quick, like in easy mode especially, since your headbutt knocks them back, and then all you need to do is initiate yet another headbutt in order to continue your dash and momentum moving forwards and still defeat the enemy in the process. So yes, the main flaw here is the fact that she's not very good at the platforming sections, because she's not the fastest jumper and she loses a lot of momentum during those sections, and there just so happens to be 5 better speedrunners, starting off with Airstrike at number 5. So Airstrike, when it comes to Imaginators, is clearly going to be a more effective speedrunner than any core, since he has the increased power over the cores being a sensei, and he is in fact the best sensei for speedrunning because you can utilize the secondary attack button to speed up as you leave diamonds behind for your bird to attack, mind you. And this has a very small cooldown window, so basically you're near enough permanently dashing, and you don't need to mash a button to dash whilst you're dashing even either. That's a lot of E's in a row right there. I just wanted the alliteration for effect, mind you. But as I digress, Airstrike is a brawler Skarner, which naturally makes him very fast-paced when it comes to the combat scenarios. And so on the easier difficulty, Airstrike will be an absolute force to be reckoned with when it comes to those combat scenarios, and him getting through them quickly, mind you. And he's going to be an absolute spectacle as well due to the sheer amount of combos he has. So not only is he going to be a fun character to play as during the speedrun, but he's also going to be very effective at it due to how fast these combos can defeat those enemies and how fast he can move on due to his dash and the lack of cooldown there. But ultimately, the best speedrunner to get through Skylanders Imaginators is going to be found within a fire creation crystal, since this gives you the ability to a dashing-based ability that once again has a very small cooldown window, one that is scarce to not even be existent. And due to this, you can, of course, go from point A to point B very quickly, simply by mashing the secondary attack button, which can create mistakes, especially when the dash attack locks in on enemies that you didn't mean to dash towards, mind you, and the same can be said for bosses, like if that really incredibly annoying sea monster, mind you. But apart from a dash and attack, doing things that you don't intend because you mash a button a few too many times, it's still going to be the fastest option to get through this game. And better yet is the fact that Imaginators get a power bonus against all boss fights, meaning that you're going to speed through those boss fights far more quickly with a creation crystal at hand. So therefore, that makes the fire creation crystal easily the most effective method of speedrunning Imaginators. As a quick little addition I wanted to make to this here list with this little guy being included is the fact that a lot of you might say that this doesn't qualify for the list because it's not a traditional Skylander. But to that, I say it is a Skylander because whilst the figurine itself definitely differs in comparison to a figurine like Firebone a Hot Dog right here, what you actually get out of the creation crystal in terms of the digital content is a Skylander. It just so happens to be a Skylander of your own, a Skylander you've created. So therefore I still count Imaginators as Skylanders within the context of this video. And you're still going to debate with me whether the title is clickbait or not. So I just wanted to justify that all the same. And one other thing is that I completely neglected to mention the fact that there are 10 different battle classes you can choose for this creation crystal. But there are only going to be a few that are going to be your decent speedrunners, such as your knights for certain, or your quick shots. It really depends on whether you want to get up close and personal with enemies, in which case you want to choose a knight or a sentinel because they have really powerful melee based attacks, or whether you prefer speedrunning from a distance, so that's where quick shots or ninjas are going to be much better, for instance. So it's all down to your playing style and how you prefer to speed through the game, mind you. But regardless, now the creation crystal has been done with, so let's move on to the next part of the list, and I should probably pick that up. Number 3, however, receiving the bronze medal is going to be none other than Boomjet, who once again has a permanent dash, allowing him to absolutely soar through the levels of Swap Force or Trap Team alike, where he's most recommended to speedrun simply by holding the circle button. Now, unfortunately, his jumps lose a lot of momentum similar to Rollerball, but what ultimately makes him a better speedrunner is the fact that with Boomjet and all of the other swappers, you can exploit a glitch in Trap Team known as double jump, which allows you to go over certain key doors without actually collecting the keys or even skip cutscenes. So ultimately, having the ability to do this with Boomjet and a villain at hand is going to make them a very effective speedrunning duo. And the dashing-based ability from the Boomjet bottom half is just ultimately so fast and so easy to utilize with such little cooldown that He is the quickest swap force character without a doubt. And of course, you can swap him for an even more powerful top half, but the top half of Boomjet as is incredibly powerful and gets through combat scenarios very, very quickly, as it should on easy difficulties. But number 2, however, is going to be yet another air character known as Stormblade, the fastest of the superchargers, because she has a dash attack that once again has very, very little cooldown, so you can you can string dash attacks together very, very easily to absolutely soar through levels. And the power found within her projectiles can not only defeat enemies from afar, but it can do it very, very quickly due to the speed of these projectiles. Therefore, due to the fact that Stormblade can get through combat scenarios very, very quickly, makes her a very effective speedrunner as well. And whilst your dash is cooling down, you also have the ability of throwing blades in all directions for crowd control, so you can dash into that attack and make it so that you defeat all the enemies around you and can continue dashing. So that management of crowd control also makes her very effective in combat scenarios. So ultimately, she is an absolute beast when it comes to speed, and there's only one character which I would say is a stronger speedrunner than her, and that's going to be Flameslinger. At our number 1 slot, we have Series 2 Flameslinger, specifically due to the fact that his WoW power ability gives him a second element to his dash attack, which makes him even faster. So his dash is pretty fast on a base level, but once you upgrade it farther with that previously mentioned WoW power, it becomes an absolute force to be reckoned with when it comes to creating speedrunning world records for yourself, so to say. Now, this dashing based ability of Flameslingers is not only quick, but it's also highly maneuverable. You can easily make sharp turns, meaning that you don't lose any momentum when turning. And when you're going in straight lines, it feels almost natural to initiate that WoW power, especially in his home turf, Skylanders Giants, therefore making it so easy to absolutely soar through levels. And I mean soar, because your fire-based abilities can create traps for enemies, so you can get through combat scenarios very quickly. You also have the crowd control, and the fact that all you need to do is run in a circle, which is fast in and of itself, to create a fiery explosion. And you can even take advantage by using your volley shot to defeat enemies when they're most vulnerable. So this character has everything: an ability to defeat enemies quickly and sooner than what other Skylanders can, due to the range and the angle in which his volley shot can take him. He has the speed, the maneuverability, the lack of cooldown between dashes, the permanent dashes to minimize mistakes when you're utilizing the character. So there is no better way to speedrun any of these games than with Flameslinger himself, unless we're talking about Imaginators here, where unfortunately, just like all of the other cores, Flameslinger got nerfed, making his combat in that game not as great as characters like the Fire Creation Crystal or Airstrike, as previously mentioned. But for the other 5 games, however, Flameslinger, let's just say he's the world record holder with great reason. But that's going to do it for this here Top 10 Thursday, so I sure hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be seeing you next week for another hashtag Top 10 Thursday. But until that moment arises, peace, and thank you as always for watching.